Summon the King of Skull Servants. Go ahead, commit to battle phase. Enter battle phase, activate Vampire Fallen's effect. Go ahead and hit our opponent for 6,900 for that meme damage. But yo, what is up, guys? Welcome indeed to today's special Halloween edition with, of course, the cosplay, because we like Skull Servants, But let's go ahead and actually show off a good Halloween deck, which really comes down to Skull Servants with the new support, with an upgraded deck profile. So let's go ahead and hop into the gameplay of the new Skull Servants. So, obviously, Skull Servants, very fan favorite archetype, getting a really nice new support card coming out into the future. Plus, there has been a few newer cards that have came out during this timeline of waiting for new Skull Servant support cards to go ahead and come out. So, Skull Servants is a really good archetype if you like to go ahead and hit your opponent for massive amounts of damage, because he gains 1,000 attack for the combined number of King of Skull Servants and Skull Servants in your graveyard times 1,000. And on top of that, when it's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you get to banish a other King of the Skull Servants or a Skull Servant from your graveyard, and you get to bring him back. So, in a sense, if you like a Grand Madre Daisa archetype where you're being able to go ahead and just have a monster with insane amounts of attack, this is probably going to be an archetype that you might want to consider. Now, the downsides with Grand Madre Daisa is he has really no protection. Over with this, you do have some protection, as you guys will see with Lady in White, meaning that your Skull Servant will be able to be a little bit more resistant to certain archetypes. But on top of that, the main card that we're actually going to be taking a look at, why it's so good now, and you can see, look at that, 10,000 attack, but he did heal up earlier with, of course, one of the hand traps. But the main card that we're going to be focusing in on is White Baking. This is the new card that makes Skull Servants so much better. So its name becomes Skull Servant while it's in the graveyard, and if there are if a level 3 or lower zombie monster you control destroy a battle by card effect, you can disc this card instead. So it has extra protection on top of already having protection built in, and if it's sent to the graveyard, you get to add 2 monsters with different names from your deck to your hand that are Skull Servant, and or specifically list the card Skull Servant in their text except for White Baking, and then you discard a card. So you're able to beef up the Skull Servant even more and get some extra protection. But we got a lot of different duels here, so you guys can kind of see it lose, you can see it win. There's a few cards that I thought were really interesting over here. Since you have a lot more consistency with the deck being able to go ahead and ramp up the damage fast enough, sometimes you won't even need to be able to worry about what your opponent has as an established board, because they might not want to negate your effects of, you know, going into the King of Skull Servants, because then you might have a follow-up play and they're going to regret that. But the thing is that Skull Servant's effect over here, the effect where it's when it's destroyed, you can activate that effect. But once it just comes out, it just gains that attack. It doesn't have to activate. It just, the original attack of the card is actually changed. So it's a little bit difficult to negate. Once King of Skull Servant comes out, he's usually going to go ahead and hit your opponent for massive amounts of damage, unless they happen to have something to go ahead and negate his effect of being able to be even able to gain that attack in the first place, meaning something that would just like Valor or something that would again make it so he won't even be able to apply that effect. But that effect won't activate, and that is kind of key over here to certain decks' success. But once you happen to have Lady in White, which is a really awesome protection card over here, this card is able to make it so face-up level 3 or lower zombie monsters on the field, except for Lady in White, cannot be destroyed by battle, and they're unaffected by spell and trap cards and effects. So again, there's where your extra protection comes in. And on top of that, with the Opti Camouflage Armor, I mentioned before, sometimes you don't have to worry about your opponent's monsters. You can just go ahead, you can only equip it to level 1, but hey, the King of Skull Servants is level 1. It gets to attack your opponent's life points directly. So if you have the right targets, you don't worry about anything. You just one-shot them for game, GG, give them the handshake. And again, with this as extra protection, plus of course the newer support, it makes it quite nice. With Dark Factory and more production, you're able to cycle through cards even faster. And we'll talk a little bit more about other tech choices that you guys can opt to go ahead and play if you want to go ahead and do so. But now we're going to go ahead and see it up against Mutant Dragmas or Dogmatica, which is still very popular as an archetype. However, with the Skull Servant archetype, you really don't need the extra too much. And I say too much because you technically sometimes need to go ahead and just start sending your monsters to the graveyard. So linking off into a Link Karibo is excellent for this deck, or going into a Nightmare Phoenix or a Princess Wee Witchling can be also another great option, as it just lets your monsters go to the graveyard, boost up your King of Skull Servants. Also, there's a card that hasn't seen, I would say, play in a long time. In fact, this card was at one point in Yu-Gi-Oh! But Burrow from a Different Dimension allows you to have a quick play that can boost your King of Skull Servants and surprise your opponent and deal even more damage when maybe they attack into you. You can go ahead and surprise Burrow from a Different Dimension, reset some of your cards so you have extra cards to go and banish for the King of Skull Servants and or whatever other cards that you need. And then on top of that, your monster is going to be boosted up to a nice amount of attack. You're seeing the Burrow from a Different Dimension. Getting your reset over here, going to go ahead and be able to boost the card up even more. And then in chess is going to have that awesome effect as well. But King of Skull Servants is very resilient, and it will definitely come back again and again. And now with the protection over here, he's got 5,000. His opponent goes in top decks. Unfortunately, Ash Blossom not going to do him too good over here, but he's going to go ahead and just have to say GG over here. But I saved the best for the last gameplay over here, which is a really insane 60-card variant of Eldelich plus the Skull Servants. Now, there's a lot of different builds, as this is going to be an upgraded deck profile, so we will have multiple different builds. You guys saw it win and lose. Well, technically a mirror match. One of them is going to lose. But I just want to go and showcase off a lot of other ways to play the deck, because I like more innovative stuff in Yu-Gi-Oh! Seeing what other people try out to see if it actually works or not. So this is going to be a Phantom Knight deck over here. Obviously, they've gotten a lot more newer support recently, and technically they're supposed to be with like a Raid Raptors, but you can still definitely play them by themselves, or you can mix them up with the Burning Abyss, and they're still also very powerful. But once again, with the Eldelich, you're going to be able to recycle your cards for days, as long as, of course, you set the card, it doesn't get banished during the end phase. But he's going to go ahead and set up a rank up Magic Phantom Knight's Force, but unfortunately, our Eldelich boy over here, he is going to be completely stopped, but he's going to go ahead and activate some Glean over here. Bring out the White Baking over here, because this is just one zombie monster from your deck or graveyard. Which is an excellent ability. So there is some synergy with mixing it with the Eldelich engine, which I think is quite cool. And I think it might be the better way to play it, because even though this deck might not be considered like the most meta of things, it's still a pretty decent deck, and at any point, the deck can completely explode off and then hit you for massive amounts of damage, unless you happen to have like back row, which again, most decks don't really play too much back row. I mean, technically with Empowerment, it's more of a hand trap than anything, but being able to go ahead and, again, hit for massive amounts of damage, what seems like to be out of nowhere, and it makes people very salty when, like, you get, even Gren Maju and King of Skull Servants do this all the time, where they just, like, hit their opponent for massive amounts of damage, and their opponent's like, dude, this card is so OP, but, like, you know, is the King of Skull Servants, so that's what the King does, man. There he hits again for the 6,900 points of damage, which I think is absolutely awesome for the memes. But yeah, there's a lot of different builds here. This one is from Pierre, and I like the Eldelich variant the most, but you guys can go ahead and give me your guys' suggestions as well as which one you guys like the most. You can play it more as a pure variant as well, but I want to go ahead and go over just a variety here. So the Golden Land's going to go ahead and come out. He still happens to have a Lady in White. Unfortunately, its effect was negated. He actually had to negate the effects of Lady in White because they're unaffected by spell and trap cards, except herself. She doesn't protect herself, but again, he had to go ahead and use the Droplet over there and then get rid of that effect so he can actually get rid of the Skull Servant. But with the Skull Servant deck, you already know he's going to be coming back all the dang time. Now, the opponent over here, he still has a Rushy Bardiche, and he has the ability to go and bring back another card, so he's going to go Raider's Knight and try to get rid of the King of Skull Servants. But with only few life points left, it's no match for the Eldelich, because the mix-up is actually pretty good. Now that you guys have seen it in action, let's go ahead and do a deck profile for the builds over here. So the first one is by Pierre. I'm going to go ahead and mouse over these really quick as with upgraded deck profiles, otherwise this would be too long. Now, one card that was seen in a lot of builds that I have seen before is the Doom King Baildrock. If you want to go ahead and play Zombie World, this can completely mess up other people's plays because everything becomes zombie and it becomes a problem because they can't tribute for certain things. Definitely a great card to consider. Yeah, Beldrock just adds another negation. It's not really for Skull Servants in particular, but it does technically work, and it is part of a zombie, so it does kind of fit the theme over here. So like I said, I'll mouse over a bunch of the cards really quick, as again, with these upgraded deck profiles, there's just so much to cover. He's maxing out on the Lightning Storm, because remember, at any point you can just go ahead and with the Eldritch, you might not want to go ahead and add that card immediately if you want to follow up with that Lightning Storm, because obviously you have to control no face up cards, and you might have one kind of lingering up on the board or whatever. But yeah, just going ahead and popping everything can be fantastic, and then you just go ahead and swing for the 8k, which can be quite nice. And there is also that like armor that I mentioned where you could do clip to level 1. I think Lightning Storm is overall better, but I think it makes people even more salty when you go ahead and do that. I've even seen some people test out and they are playing with the Extravagance, because again, the most important card honestly with this deck is probably going to be Linkuriboh, unless of course you want to play Super Poly, which is another great option. You could still go ahead and mix in both of them too, as it's just really necessary to deal with those turn 1 boards. This is more like a pure zombie variant over here with the White Princess, and of course Unizombie is fantastic in the deck. Also Book of Life, it's just like another Reborn, but on top of that, it banishes a card out of your opponent's graveyard. But one thing to keep note of with Book of Life, you have to banish an opponent's monster. This is why I generally prefer Reborn. Sometimes your opponent won't have a monster and you want to go and pop off, and it's just simply not there. It also depends what you're playing against, but most of the time Book of Life is better. It's just that Reborn is always active versus Book of Life. Sometimes there are certain times where you just can't pull it off, man. But this one has a little bit of extra room for it, of course, Synchro Summoning. And this one was from Down the God. This guy's name was just Player over here. This is a danger variant. I've seen a lot of just danger variants in general. I feel like the whole zombie with like Mizuki's still great, but I think cards like Goblin Zombie has been kind of phased out. This does have the awesome effect though. If it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to instantly add that zombie monster with 1200 less defense from your deck to your hand, so it can kind of set you up. But again, I just feel like it's a little bit slow at times when Yu-Gi-Oh! Just gotten to the point where like it's like summon a bunch of stuff, negate really fast or nothing. Keep in mind, question mark attack is not a 0, but 0 defense is obviously still 0, and that's you know, what it tries to search out for. Just a quick little note. It's a thing that comes up sometimes when I mention certain cards for like Fortune Ladies and stuff like that. But this one over here, there's still extra deck room. And then this one over here is more of like a pure variant, obviously with, of course, that new Feather Dust. This one's also got Twin Twisters. There's also Dark Eruption. You can go ahead and just add back pretty much most of the things from your graveyard. However, just as a heads up, with the King of Skull Servants, question mark is still question mark. It does not count as like 0 in the graveyard, so keep that in mind in case you want to go ahead and utilize that. So a lot of people try out Dark Factory more production. I think it's an okay option, but like cards like this is just for like memes and just like awesome sometimes just to make your opponent extra salty. Again, you do have extra deck room. I think some people were just trying out other builds like No Gel over here, but if you were to ask me which one would I consider the most potential over here, I honestly really like the Eldritch, just because it has that mix-up plus Eldritch has that consistency, being able to go ahead and get those cards again and again. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this Halloween special of an actual good deck, because I was originally going to make a Halloween deck, but I'm like, you know what, Skull Servant stuff is just way better, and I saved this video with the 6900 attack damage for you guys over here, courtesy of Pierre. So shout outs to all you guys for building these awesome Skull Servant decks. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like on it. And if you guys are new here, make sure you guys are subscribed with that bell notification on if you want to watch more new Yu-Gi-Oh! Content in the future. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Happy Halloween. Have a good and safe Halloween trick-or-treating if you're going to go and participate in that. If not, I'll catch you awesome people in the next one. Have a good one, and I'm signing out. Peace.